Stella Gray moved quietly through the art gallery's gleaming corridors, her attire modest compared to the elegant gowns and tailored suits that fluttered about her. As the diligent store clerk for the gallery's luxury gift shop, Stella was careful not to make waves. Her world was one of polite service, not of mutual recognition among this echelon of society. She moved quickly, setting up the final arrangements in the shop adjoining the grand hall, where priceless artworks waited to captivate the wealthy patrons who mingled there. As the hours ticked by, the atmosphere grew electric with anticipation. The night's highlight, a breathtaking masterpiece touted as an unprecedented acquisition, loomed in its guarded display. But just as the signals were given for the VIP auction to begin, whispers cascaded into panic. The painting was missing, and tension mounted with every breath. Soon, Conrad Bennington, the event's influential host, stepped forward, his voice carrying a gravitas that silenced the room's anxious chatter. With a pointed finger, he accused Stella of the crime, asserting that her proximity to the gallery and her unnoticed persona made her an ideal suspect. A murmur rippled through the crowd, with onlookers casting glances filled with skepticism and poorly veiled disdain. Of course it would be someone like her, someone whispered, underestimating her resolve. Stella stood, heart hammering, confronted by a whirlwind of judgment that left no room for her innocence. Security swept in with swift finality, escorting her through the now glaring throng. Her cheeks burned with humiliation, words of defense swallowed by the disbelief of those who surrounded her. She took one last look at the opulence around her, holding the truth dearer than ever, before stepping quietly into the night, away from unjust accusations. Stella sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the peeling wallpaper of her small bedroom. The early morning light spilled through the sheer curtains, casting a soft glow over the room, but it felt stark and unforgiving. Her head throbbed with fatigue, her body heavy with the weight of the past few days. The bitter taste of injustice lingered in her mouth, mingling with the cold coffee she'd abandoned on the kitchen counter. Her thoughts remained a tangled web of confusion and humiliation. As a store clerk at one of the most prestigious art galleries in the city, she had believed, even in her modest role, she was part of something grand. Now, that had all crumbled into dust. Ever since Conrad Bennington, the influential host of the high-profile art event, had pointed his finger at her, a resident specter of uncertainty had taken up residence in her mind. How quickly one's world could unravel. The accusation had left an indelible mark, each memory raw and unforgiving like salt on a wound. She felt stripped bare, exposed in front of a crowd that had so easily accepted one man's assertion over her silent dignity. Her phone buzzed intermittently with messages, a mix of sympathetic notes and polite inquiries wrapped in doubt. She found little solace in them, their well-meaning words grazing the surface of her turmoil but failing to penetrate the deeper wound. Her name, once whispered among her small circles as synonymous with hard work and reliability, now carried the sting of scandal. As dawn faded into morning, she found herself lost in the monotony of domestic chores, each task methodical yet detached, a temporary reprieve from the relentless churning inside her head. She stood at the sink, hands in soapy water, as sunlight warmed her back and the droning hum of the city filtered through her kitchen window. It was a world moving on, all while hers felt paused mid-breath. She lost herself in a familiar ritual, her fingers tracing the contours of a delicate porcelain cup, a family heirloom passed down through generations of Grays. It had been one of the few possessions she'd clung to, a symbol of continuity and endurance amidst life's turbulence. As she gently dabbed the cup, she recalled brighter days, memories of tangled conversations and laughter shared with her mother beneath the same golden glow of morning sun that now pierced her solitude. Stella's life path had once been clear. Her academic journey was mapped out with precision back when she was an earnest art history student, absorbing knowledge with fervor. Those days felt like a lifetime ago now. A sudden illness had dragged her mother into a world of doctors' offices and hospital wards, and Stella had found herself stepping into the role of caregiver, her aspirations slipping away with each necessary sacrifice. The gallery job had been a lifeline, a chance to reconnect with a world she had been forced to sideline. It was meant to be a fresh start, a way to carve out a piece of stability that she had craved since her mother's passing. Now, her future felt precariously balanced on the edge of ruin. Despite everything, Stella clung to an ember of resolve, a quietly burning determination kindled through years of perseverance. She would not let the injustice prevail. The truth was her only ally, and she clung to it with ferocity. She hadn't taken the painting, and amid the chaos, there had to be a path that led back to her rightful place, or so she desperately hoped. That afternoon, Stella sat with a notebook, attempting to sketch out everything she could recall about the night of the disappearance. She relived every moment, painstakingly scribbling down the details, the guests' haughty expressions, the precise events that had unfolded before the painting's sudden absence. Her mind circled back to one particular interaction she'd barely registered at the time, a memory suddenly seeming out of place. A man boarding a private jet in a hurry lingered at the edges of her memory. She had seen him from a window as she restocked a shelf. His demeanor was anxious, hurried, a stark contrast to the evening's supposed elegance. She knew there was more to it, but the specifics remained frustratingly vague. Seeking clarity, Stella revisited people within her scant network who might offer perspective, but each meeting felt more like a labyrinth, every lead dissolving into nothing. Frustration mounted, yet she refused to succumb to despair. She knew that proving her innocence would require tenacity she wasn't sure she possessed in full measure. When evening fell, she retreated again, head heavy with unvoiced questions and fear nipping at resolve like an incessant whisperer in the dark. She lay awake, scenes from her past softly unspooling in the confines of her room, a testimony to the road she had traveled and the willpower that had seen her through moments of equal, if not greater, despair. There was something in this resurgence, a flicker of remembrance or defiance she could almost taste. It hummed through her weary bones, urging her to stand her ground, to demand justice where none was offered. She owed it to the years of sacrifice and the woman she had become in the crucible of adversity. With morning would come new strategies, a recharting of her course to seek out the truth that hung, elusive yet essential, just beyond reach. Until then, she remained captive to the night, the compassionate echo of her own voice reassuring her of innocence and the quiet sulky promise of vindication. As the darkness reluctantly gave way to dawn, Stella, a woman wronged yet unyielding, determinately composed herself, ready to fight not just for her own redemption, but for the sanctity of those sacrifices she had made and the future they were meant to secure. Stella awoke to a gray, somber morning, the kind that seemed to echo her own turbulent thoughts. Her determination had not wavered, but facing the scale of the challenge ahead was daunting. Nevertheless, she was resolved. Slowly, she prepared for the day, moving with a quiet strength she hoped would see her through. Her first task was to mentally revisit the suspect memory. Over the days, it had drifted, nebulous, around the periphery of her consciousness, the hurried man boarding the jet waiting in the gallery's secluded lot. She now recalled the subtle buzz of the event, the way the guests had flowed in like a tide, each bringing their currents of wealth and reputations. Each seemed to belong to a world apart, one where justice was often a construct at the mercy of power and privilege. Yet amidst the crowd, the hurried man had been different. In flashes, she recalled furtive glances and nervous energy. Strange behaviors she hadn't paid much attention to then now formed significant pieces of a puzzle that demanded resolving. But crucial details eluded her, frustrating gaps that bristled with unspoken truth. Determined, she made her way back to the gallery, a place that had once been sanctuary now looming like an adversary. She had promised herself she would return, despite the discomfort and unease tinged by memories of the public denunciation she had suffered there. The effort it took to cross that threshold paled in comparison to the weighty drive to restore her good name. Inside, with its polished floors and ambient lighting, the gallery felt almost transcendent, as though time behaved differently within its confines. Stella moved past the guards with polite nods, a careful smile betraying the thrum of nerves prickling beneath her skin. The guarded glances from some colleagues sliced at her resolve, but she let them bounce off, moving purposefully toward the security office. Her pulse quickened as she approached Kyle, the part-time guard whose sympathy she hoped to enlist. His shift was ending as she arrived, but a flicker of recognition tempered with wariness brightened his gaze. "Stella," he greeted as she drew near, an unvoiced question lingering in the air between them. Still, his demeanor held a warmth that suggested willingness to help. "Hi, Kyle," she began, finding steadiness in the firm ground of genuine appeal. "I need your help. There's something I noticed that might still be on the security tapes." Without delay, she disclosed her recollection of the night of the theft, the man whose presence and subsequent disappearance had stirred suspicions within her. To her relief, Kyle nodded thoughtfully, tapping absent-mindedly against the blank notepad by his chair. "I've heard bits about that while working crowd control," he said, surprisingly candid. "People gossip, you know. And I think I know exactly who you're talking about." The guy seemed on edge all evening. For the first time since the accusation, hope flared brighter, bolstering Stella's weary heart. Together, they reviewed footage, the room suffused with the soft whirring of cameras clicking into action as past events unfurled across multiple screens. Stella sat tense, absorbing each moment with meticulous focus, a bead of sweat prickling her brow. Minutes stretched languidly until there it was, the hurried man, Conrad Bennington himself, moving stealthily through the space with an air of casual purpose. Stella watched as he orchestrated distractions with deft precision, deflecting attention while the painting was removed by unseen hands. Her breath caught in her throat as the truth unfolded before her. The missing painting quietly maneuvered through a side door, later glimpsed alongside the jet's waiting silhouette. Her thoughts were untethered, swirling with this newfound certainty. The host had orchestrated his own theft, a revelation that daunted her yet clarified her mission. Here lay the kernel of her vindication, undeniable evidence that could overturn the lie poised to poison her reputation permanently. She turned to Kyle, whose expression mirrored shock and empathy at the intricate deception laid bare before them. "This is enough, isn't it?" she asked, raw hope threading her voice. "Proof that I didn't do it?" "It's more than enough," he agreed, nodding with conviction. "What do you plan to do with it?" Stella paused, the implications sharpening at the edge of decision. She had a choice: stay silent, preserving her anonymity, or risk judgment and scrutiny in pursuit of justice. But after everything, the accusations, the looks, the sense of dejection drawing her spirits downward, she had had enough. "I need to expose the truth," she said finally, her words clearer than ever. "Conrad Bennington can't get away with this. It isn't just me, it's about accountability, integrity." With a quiet understanding, Kyle transferred the footage to a flash drive, entrusting it into Stella's care with solemnity. "Go for it, Stella. I've got your back." She left the gallery with tangible proof clutched tight, conscious of its potential to alter not just her narrative but the scandal sweeping through an art world built on illusion and pageantry. Each step out resonated with growing certainty, fear replaced by calculated anticipation at what her evidence might unearth in the right hands. Navigating through the filigree of Manhattan's ceaseless energy found her engaging with Maya once again, the trusted journalist whose tenacity matched her own rekindled resolve. Over coffee, she provided the flash drive, detailing the threads of Conrad's deception with palpable intensity, her story no longer a whisper but a steady crescendo. Maya's response was a practiced blend of incredulity and motivation. She understood how illustrating such betrayal could reverberate, how it threatened the very fabric of a society woven with thinly veiled pretension. And she was determined to see it publicized, to shake foundations often deemed unbreakable. "There'll be backlash," Maya advised, eyes earnest yet wary. "You'll be scrutinized, even targeted. But we can shed light on matters meant to stay hidden, Stella. You sure you're ready?" Stella's gaze locked with Maya's, unbroken and resilient. "I'm ready," she affirmed quietly, the conviction echoing through both their hearts like a vow. Thus, hand in hand with her courage, Stella stepped away from obscurity into the light. Her truth was her shield, a beacon illuminated against deceit, unraveling the tapestry of lies Conrad had spun. The narrative would change, consequences awaited. Stella was prepared for the challenges, knowing vindication was near, an inevitable reckoning on a horizon she now embraced, head held high. Stella felt an invigorating pulse of purpose as she walked along the bustling city streets, her path lined with towering edifices that seemed to whisper tales of power and ambition. The city was alive, vibrant with activity, a perfect backdrop for the revelation poised to emerge. The flash drive in her pocket was a quiet promise, its weight almost talismanic, the key to shattering illusions and revealing truths. She felt a profound kinship with its importance, knowing it bore witness to the conflated world of lies in which she'd been unjustly submerged. Maya, the journalist, had wasted no time. Her skills in investigative reporting were unparalleled, fueled by a commitment to truth once engaged. She rallied her resources, determined to draw back the veil on Conrad Bennington's deceitful art theft. They planned to release the story at an exclusive gallery event where Conrad would be present, a deliberate strike at a calculated moment when the repercussions could echo most powerfully. In the days leading up to the event, Stella prepared herself emotionally and mentally. She reflected often on the profound disconnect between the cultured veneer of the art world and the stark reality of her experience within it, an understanding she never expected or desired to confront. Yet here she stood, ready to challenge it head-on. Meanwhile, the gallery buzzed with anticipation. Maya meticulously plotted every detail, ensuring that the exposure would be nothing short of spectacular. She enlisted a documentary crew with high-profile connections to capture the unfolding drama, their presence both protective and validating, a visible testament to the legitimacy of Stella's ordeal and her courage in confronting it. The fateful evening arrived, and as Stella walked into the opulently decorated gallery, she noted how the ambience reverberated with echoes of her last appearance, the accusing looks, hostile whispers, all now transformed into a prelude to justice. Despite the recent history, her spirit soared resiliently above the tentacles of doubt once threatening to ensnare her. Guests began to arrive, swarming like bees drawn to the evening's alluring promise of glamour and intrigue. Conrad, exuding confidence, took center stage in an expensively tailored suit, his demeanor giving nothing away of the deception he had cultivated. Watching him from a distance, Stella steeled herself with a sober sense of purpose. Maya navigated the crowd with grace and charm, bolstered by the simmering tension of impending revelation. She caught Stella's eye, a subtle nod exchanged between them. It was time. The room dimmed as the spotlight focused on Conrad, who began his speech exuding eloquence and false modesty, praising artistic insight and integrity, words that rang hollow for those aware of the lie he had engineered. But as voices quieted and the room leaned in with rapt attention, Maya stepped forward, her voice cutting crisply through the charged silence. "Ladies and gentlemen, your attention please." A ripple of curious murmurs coursed through the crowd, curiosity quickly shifting to intrigue at the unexpected interruption. Maya advanced boldly, her command of the room evident. She gestured to the large, suspended screen now dominating the space, a screen that would soon lay bare truth for all present. What you are about to see does not concern a mere art transaction. No, it's about the integrity on which these very walls were built. The footage rolled, casting the night's deception across the gallery's expanse. There it was, Conrad's orchestrated con, played frame by frame, the distraction, the quietly maneuvered painting, the getaway tied to the idle presence of his private jet. The audience, ensconced in disbelief, watched the narrative fracture beneath their feet, their deference unraveling into gasps that pierced the highbrow reserve maintained thus far. Some glanced incredulously from the screen to Conrad, others whispering urgently in the growing incredulity that pervaded the gathering. Conrad himself seemed frozen, his carefully crafted facade faltering as the footage declared him complicit and condemned in a conspiracy he might have thought invincible. Sweat beaded on his brow as the reality of exposure set in. Stella stood in the wings, heart racing at the spectacle unraveling before her. She felt a mingling of anxiety and exhilaration, her journey, a mosaic of quiet strength and resilient defiance, culminating in this pivotal moment. Her chest swelled with a burgeoning relief, knowing the truth, her truth, emerged unshackled. As the film reached its inevitable crescendo, spectators turned, their demeanor shaded with disapproval and offense. Conrad, nervous bravado trembling, attempted a denial that faltered under its own hollow defense, his voice unable to dampen the noise of realization cresting like a wave against him. A cacophony of exchanges ensued, accusations, demands for explanation, an uproar Conrad could not placate, his influence untethered from its moorings amidst the tidal exposure. The public's lens had shifted, zooming glaringly upon his orchestrated illusion. Security appeared at the fringes, seeking guidance among the disarray, poised to act upon Maya's instructions should it fall to them. It was a scene crackling with energy and recrimination, a spectacle that defied the gallery's vaulted elegance bowed beneath irony's deft stroke. For Stella, time seemed to slow, a moment surged with fulfillment, not just a personal vindication but a collective acknowledgement of an injustice thwarted. Amongst the chorus of chaos, Maya's presence remained centered, reporting with determined precision to outlets ready to broadcast the scandal now rife for transmission. Her work ensured a growing chorus beyond the gallery's confines, demanding justice and adherence to principles peopled galleries extol. Meanwhile, Stella absorbed the fallout with a practiced composure. She had climbed a steep path, one lined with uncertainty and accusation at every turn, but had emerged, buoyed by resilience nurtured in struggle. As justice surged, its unveiling became her story, and the theft's unveiling a symbol of truth, challenged but resolute, ultimately triumphant. With the gallery's curtains falling upon the evening, Stella watched the dissolution of the curtain that had once shadowed her, now defiantly flung wide, and in the space it left open, she stepped confidently forward, a woman emboldened, unfaltering, her presence confirmed in her voice, a resolute echo finally heard. The shock that rippled through the room was palpable, a forceful wave breaking against the fibers of opulent decor that had once promised an evening of celebrated artistry. Stella watched as Conrad Bennington, his guise of prestige and control now splintered, stood cornered, an ironic reversal of the position he had thrust her into. The gallery's cultural elite, those who had once thronged to his orbit, now turned away, their judgment harsh and swift. The whispers turned to pointed conversations, discussions at an increasing volume punctuated by the unmistakable timbre of betrayal. In a space where appearances were paramount, it was entrance into the whispered litany of disdain. For Stella, the transformation of the room was astonishing. Oxygen seemed to purify, expelling the toxicity that had threatened her world and installing something fresh and affirming in her stead. She observed the pageant of justice, it left a current of exhilaration humming beneath her skin. Collectively, they had begun dissecting Conrad's facade, the revelations sparking questions demanding answers. Security personnel, once ensconced in galleries' hierarchies, now moved assertively, their purpose shifting from protection to detainment, eyes fixed warily on a man whose status had all but evaporated into pasted reliefs of memory. A police presence, until now confined to the shadows beyond the gallery's entrance, stepped forward with authoritative stride. They approached Conrad with measured resolve, ushered to enact what justice could, immune to safeguard, their mere presence a declaration of Conrad's newfound vulnerability. Stella watched as their interaction carried on, Conrad's protests dissolving amid the persistent scrutiny, his pleas dissipating into futility as they escorted him toward a waiting vehicle. There was a poetic inverse about the scene, echoing her departure years earlier, eyes burning with humiliation. The scandal strategist was now the one trapped, faced with reconstructing his life amidst the fractures sprung from greed and arrogance. Nearby, Maya was fielding calls with the efficiency of a practiced conductor, her control and orchestration impeccable. She signaled to Stella with a thumbs up, a gesture rich in camaraderie and triumph, a shared sisterhood in pursuit of truth. Witnessing Maya's unerring fidelity to integrity lifted any residual sentiment of loneliness Stella had carried. The gallery's directors, starkly subdued yet resolutely hopeful, approached Stella with a blend of vulnerability and gratitude. A rift bisecting the past from present demanded mending, sentences laden with sincere apology acknowledging her trial, a contrition that at once admitted errors and sought reconciliation. "Stella, I can't express," the director began, his voice cracking under the weight of their collective misconception. Stella met his gaze, something in her allowing the words to penetrate without animosity. "I know what you want to say," she offered, easing the burden he shouldered, her own eyes softening as they shared an understanding. Her forgiveness was intrinsic, devoid of ego. A fresh lightness inhabited her heart and encouraged openness. Assurances flowed, speaking to a reinstatement within the gallery ranks, regarding her as partner to significance waiting patiently yet persistently on horizons not only reclaimed but expansive. With her tenure vindicated, discussions naturally meandered to increments, a promotion, perhaps, symbolic of true acknowledgement recognized by audience and community alike. It was all significantly more than she had expected or even thought appropriate, yet she couldn't deny a certain validated, rightful satisfaction, as if she could finally weave the threads of identity carefully matched to growth. "Thank you," Stella said simply, without adornments, straightforward, suffused with dignity, reflective of a journey settled and now beginning newly emboldened chapter. The gallery manager's nod suggested esteem akin to that Goliath reserved for David, a timeless respect for courage asserting justice. Maya stepped closer, a smile replacing professional veneer still guarding her expressions. "Told you we'd see this through," she murmured, their bond currents humming naturally with momentum to fill the newfound void created by breaking revelation. Stella chuckled, a music heard even in cacophony. Instead of a verdict, her smile now spoke the chorus of affirmation. "Couldn't have done it without you," she noted simply, leveling her gaze in sincerity upon one of the dearest allies any could know. With the echoes of the evening fading, Stella made her exit under a changing sky. She walked both lighter and taller, each step resonating with triumph and peace, her silhouette a clarion testament to resilience unyielding, triumph earned through hard-fought trials of integrity faced and met. For her, redemption was neither elusive nor static. Instead, it resided fluidly within her, rejuvenated by and rooted eternally to the rewards of accountability achieved. Her colleagues' acceptance meant less in Grant than that it reaffirmed a shared commitment to mutual hopes and dreams devoid of deception's rot. No longer shadowed by a cloud of misplaced blame, Stella knew herself finally free, revealing nothing less, and yet potentially more, about her character than its component resilience all wove together as a whole through patient spirit. Despite fear, her truth endured formidable and unconquered. Experiences fortified her empathy, and the redemptive light illuminated humility. Her courage never shone brighter, an emblem of authentic grace preparing for explorative unfolding. Even as Stella wandered newly vibrant streets homeward, the sky unfolding vistas of verdant skies that buried absence behind, altogether hers was this harmonious recompense, a regent ascending amid formidable grace bearing witness never alone, but universally understood. If remembered for courage or spirit or simply quiet presence, Stella's heart could not choose to better dwell than remainder, an individual newly possessed of stature revealed only through equanimity unchallenged. With the gallery's evening shadows now trailing behind and its history laid bare, Stella walked onward, back toward her place as a building security guard guarded against moments, though ever aware of purpose unchecked. Guardiantly soon sentinels escorted Conrad to face fates dictated by justice appropriately served, assurance fostered light unto horizon beckoned forward. Stella embraced it, knowing this day was not the conclusion, but it was rightfully woven anew. Amidst city streets, Stella stood in partnership, a harmonic echo binding truth and integrity side by side upon expansive horizons illuminating the ever-coming dawn.